Welcome to the another video. So last video we were working on this activity 4. So in that one we designed these interfaces, interface 1 and interface 2. So today we will see how to develop this interface 1 functionalities. So in this one so we are having a table. So the first thing uh, in here, the first thing is, once this interface is loading to the users, so we need to load this data into this table. So that is the first thing. So then the users can select books from this table. Once users select a book, so that information we need to add into this change book details panel. So then we can do two actions there. One is delete books and another one is update book. So let's see how we are going to develop this functionality. So the first we need to load the data to the table. So first I will import the previous project because in the previous video I designed these interfaces, so therefore I'm going to import this one. Okay, sorry, not export, we need to import it. Okay, import project from zip, and we need to browse the folder. So once you import, it's good to use this clean and build option every time. Okay, so now this is the interface that today we are going to work on. So that is manage book. So first we need to load the available book information into this table. So let's see how we are going to do it. So we are going to the code behind here, and so you know that we already discussed that init component method is the method that we are normally using to load the components into the onto the interface. Once these components are loaded to the interface, so we need to load the data to this table, because without loading this component or JTable component we cannot load the data. So first we need to load the JTable component, after that only we can load the data. So once this init components finished its task, so that means all the components loaded to the interface, loaded to the screen. Okay, so then we can load data to the JTable. So here I am going to create a separate method to load data to the interface. So I will create this method as a private, and I'm not going to return anything here, and load table data. Load table data. So after this init component method, so I'm going to call to this load table data method. So in this load table data method, the first thing is I need to connect with the database. So now we will try to implement a different architecture and to different structure to connect with the database. So you know that in this application now we are going to connect to the database in many places, because in the first case, so when the user is going to sign into the application, so we connected our application with the database to get username and password information. Now here again we are connecting to the we are connecting this application to the database to get book information. And after that, in this interface also we are having some additional functions like delete, update, add new book. So in that cases also we need to connect our application to the database. So in this all the cases, so if you are going to use this traditional approach, the traditional approach means, so if I go to this sign in one, here. So this is what I mean by traditional approach. So we are first registering by giving this name, and after that we are using the connection, we are using driver manager class to get the connection, and we are going to pass this information to the we are going to pass this information to the database. So then only we are going to create the connection. But here the problem is, so think that you are going to use a different drivers, that means different database here. So then sometimes you need to change the driver. So then if we hard coded these driver names everywhere, so then you need to go into all these places, and you need to change this thing. Other thing is, for example, think that okay, so now we are using this URL to connect to the database, but you are going to change this one. So then again you need to go into all the places, and you need to change these values. So now you can see that if you are going to use this approach, so then if you are going to maintain this code, so that will be really difficult. So therefore we are actually going to create a class here to connect with the database. So that then we are going to create objects from this class once we need to connect with the database. So this class will define what is the driver that we are going to use, what is the user we are going to connect with the database, and what is the database URL, what is the user's password. Everything we are going to define inside this class. So then if I need to do some changes to these values, so I can do the changes to this class properties. So then since we are going to create objects from this class, so then that changes will be applicable for all the places. So that is how we are going to do it. So then it's very easy when you are going to maintain this application. So therefore first I'm going to create a different package here. So I will name this package as classes. Okay, under this classes package I'm going to create a new Java class. So that is db connector. So you can use any name, but normally I'm using db connector as the class name to connect the application with the database. So this is my class. So now inside this class, so I'm going to add some properties. Okay, so what are these properties? So I'm going to add the driver. Okay, so the driver is com dot mysql dot jdbc dot driver. Okay, then I'm going to add the database URL. So this is the URL. So I'm going to get that one. Okay, this is the URL, and the user, database user. So in our application we are using test user, and db user password. Okay, so now we added this properties or these attributes into our class. So now we are going to create this connection. So we are going to create a method called get connection. So this get connection method will return the connection. It's going to establish the connection between the application and the database, and it's going to return through this class. So once we are going to create an object, we can create an object, and we can call to this method to get the connection every time if we need to connect with the database. So now I'm going to create that one. So we are going to have it like a public one, public. So we are going to return here connection. Okay, so you know that normally when you are going to create a class, create a method, so we need to specify the return type here. Void means we are not returning anything, but here we are going to return a connection object, so therefore I'm going to use connection. And then so I will give a name, get connection as the name, and then okay. So now so here also we need to import those classes first. Import java dot sql dot so asterisk asterisk. So it will import all the package, all the libraries available under java.sql. So then now we need so we are still having an error here, so that is because we need to return something here. So we are going to create a connection object here by using the connection class called con, and we are not assigning any value here, but we are going to return that thing. Okay, now we need to establish the connection. So we know that when you are going to establish the connection, so we will get some issues, that mean exceptions. So therefore at the very beginning, so I'm going to add a try catch. So you can use you can type tr and you can use control space bar. So then it will give the option to add a try catch. You can select that one, and after that now I'm going to create the connection. So I'm going to assign that connection value into the con object. We already created that object. So here so I'm going to call driver manager class, and I'm going to use the get connection method. Okay, okay, before that we need to register the driver. So we can use class dot for name, and we can register the driver. So we already defined the driver name, so we can use the class dot for name, and we can give the attribute driver. So then we can register it. After that, con driver manager get connection. So here we are going to pass the db url. Okay, so after that the db user, after that the db password. Okay, so we are going to pass this information. Once this connection is established, so we are going to return this connection. Okay, so now we created the class like this. So now in this case you can see, so if you need to change anything, you can change these values here. So then we are going to call to this method to get the connection. So then this method will use these values, and it will create the connection. So now we will move to the manage connection class. So here again in this case also we will get some exceptions, because we are going to run some SQL queries here. So therefore very beginning, if we can add a try catch here, so then it's easy for us. So therefore I'm typing try and using control space bar. So then you can use this try catch block here, and inside that I'm going to first create a connection object called con. Now actually I'm going to connect with this db connector class, and I'm going to create a new objects there. Sorry. Oh, okay, so in this case also first we need to import. So we need to import this java.sql dot asterisk. So we need to import this package first, and after that we are going to create the connection. Okay, so here new db connector. Okay, so we are going to get a new db connector, and we are going to create a new object by using this db connector, and by calling to the constructor, and then we are going to call to this get connection method. So now we can get the connection. So now here we are not passing any values to create the connection because we are using the defined class. And after creating the connection, so then we need to have a SQL query to run. So here I'm creating the query. In this case we are going to get data from the database, so that means we are going to read or we are going to retrieve data from the database. So in that case we are using a select query, select all from, so we are going to get the data from the books table, so select all from books. So now we need to have a statement object to run this query, but in last video we discussed that the prepared statement, so that is the recommended approach, that recommended class to have a very secure code. So that means if you need to prevent from SQL injection attacks, so then the recommended approach is to use the prepared statement. But in this case, so this is not a dynamic query. So you can see the dynamic query means if you are going to pass some user inputs into the SQL query, so then it will becomes it becomes a dynamic query. But in this case this is not a dynamic query, so therefore we can use a statement as well. But since we already used the prepared statement in the last activity, in the last video, so I will use the prepared statement here as well. So when you are going to use the prepared statement, you need to use the prepared statement class. Okay, prepared statement class, and normally object name is pstmt. And now in the previous one, if you are going to use this statement, so we are going to use con.create statement, because it's a statement and we are going to run this statement by using this statement object. So therefore we are going to use con.create statement. But this one, you can see the name, it's a prepared statement. So that means first we are going to prepare something, after that only we are going to use this statement object to run this one. So therefore to prepare we need to have something, so that is what the query. So that means when you are going to create this object, we need to pass this query. Okay, so now I'm going to create I'm going to prepare, okay, prepare statement. And you can see once you are going to prepare this statement, we need to tell what we need to prepare. So that means this query, so therefore we need to pass it. It's not like the previous statement. Statement is con.create statement, we don't need to pass a value here. We are passing the query once you are going to run the SQL once you are going to run the once you are going to execute the query only. But in this case we need to prepare it first, so therefore we need to pass the query once you are going to create this object. Now we created the object, so now we are going to run this one. Okay, and since this is a select query, so we are going to get a result set here. So I'm going to create result set object, and I'm going to use pstmt dot execute query. Okay, so now in this case we don't need to pass a query value here, because we already passed it once we are going to create the prepared statement object. Okay, so therefore we don't need to pass this query again. Now we already prepared it, after that only we are going to execute it, so then we can directly call to execute query. But in the previous case, when you are going to use this statement, we need to pass the query with this execute query method, but here we are not passing. So now after executing this line, we can get the data from the database, and we are going to save this data under this result set object. So now we need to use this result set object to add data into our table. So this is the table. Okay, so you can see my table is J table 1. So this is my table J table 1. So now I am going to load this data into this table. So when you are going to load the data, so we are having something called data model. So we are going to use this data model to handle the data which are there in our table. So therefore I'm going to create a data model object first. So in that case I'm going to use this default data model class default data default table. Yes, default table model. So here you can see default table model is a JavaX Swing table package. Default table model uh, object here, so we will name it as DTM object, and here I'm going to get this J table 1 dot get model, so get model, and I'm going to assign, okay, sorry, get model. So get model, you can see the return value here. The get model will return the table model. Okay, so table model, but here we are having an error, so we can see what is this error. So that is the incompatible types, because this here we are going to create the object by using the default table model 1, but here once we call this JTable 1, it's actually passing a table model, but here we are using default table model to create the object, so that is why we are getting this error. But we can resolve this one by using casting one. So we can cast this table model into default table model, so then we can solve this problem. So once we create this table model, so now we are going to add data into this J table. So now we are having the result set. So result set is a set of rows and columns. So we discussed during the theory class. So we can use this rs.next to go to next rows. So that means iteratively go into the rows in a result set. So therefore I'm going to use a while loop here, because I need to get all the records, and I'm going to use rs.next. Okay, so now with this loop you can see it's a while loop. So while loop means it will execute until I'm getting all the results from the result set, and rs.next will uh, use to travel to row by row in this case. So once I go to one row by using this rs.next, so I need to get the values of this row. So the values means, so since we are using select all from books here, so in this case we are having these values: barcode, name, author, price, quantity. These are the values that I am getting from the database side. So therefore once I go into one row, so one row is having a barcode, name, author, price, quantity. So then if I can pass this field name, so then I can get the value of this field name. So here you can see in this table, okay, so if I go to this table content, so if I go to column, so these columns are actually objects. Okay, so therefore in this case also I'm going to create a string array object called item, and then I'm going to add these values into this object. Okay, so here the first thing is I need to add the barcode. So I'm going to use result set and get string method to get the string from the result set, and now I need to pass what column field or the field value or the column value I need. So here I need the barcode field value. Okay, like this I'm going to get all these information, all this data. So first barcode, next name, after that author, then price, finally quantity. Okay, so now I got the data. So now I'm going to add this data into my table. So we are going to use this TDM object and add row. So we are having add row. So you can see this add row method is um, array object. Okay, so that is why we created a string array here. So I'm going to add item. So now I can add this item into the okay, now you can see once I run this one, so now I can add so I'm adding this information to the database. I'm having only 4 books here, so I'm going to add these. I'm going to show these 4 books through this table. So that is okay, so that is how I'm going to do it. So next the other thing is, once I go to this interface, okay, so first I will run this one. So once I go to this interface, so the next thing is, now user will click on one book. Once the user click on this book, so the details of this book need to load into this change book details interface. Then only he can do some changes, like he can, if you need to update, so he can update the details, or else he can delete a book. Okay, so those things we can do by using this change book details interface. So now the next thing is, once user click on this one, so we need to load data to this interface. So this is actually handling through the events, because this is a this is a user event actually in this case. So I'm going to add an event to this table. So I will go to this table, and I'm going to properties and events tab. From here I'm going to select mouse clicked event, and then I'm going to create J table 1 mouse clicked event. Okay, so once the mouse is clicked, the first thing we need to do here is, we need to get that record values. Okay, so I'm going to create a string object called barcode, because first we are going to get the barcode. So this is how we are going to get it. So we are going to call to this J table 1, and we are asking to get the value okay, get a value in a specific place, because user is going to click on a place. In that place, so we can get the value. Okay, so we can get the value by using the row and column. Okay, so the first thing we need to pass is the row, which row and which column, so then we can get that value. Okay, that is why we are having this get value at method. In this method you can see the return type is an object. Okay, so therefore if you are going to save it as a string, so we need to convert this object into a string. So now we are going to use this get value at method, and the first thing is we need to pass the row. But here we cannot tell a specific row. Why? Because we don't know user will click on which row, because it's up to the user. User can click on the first row, second row, or 10th row. So likewise user can click on any row. So therefore we need to get this thing in a dynamic way. So to do that, so we are having a method called get selected row. Okay, so therefore we are going to use a JTable object again, JTable 1, and we are going to call this get selected row. Okay, so now once user click on a row, so we are using this method to get that row, and after that we are giving the index of the barcode. So barcode index is 0, 0th index column, so we are giving that one. But after that we need to convert this into a string. So because I told that it's actually outputting an object here to store under a string, so we need to convert into a string. Okay, so like this we can get the data. Now I'm going to get the other data as well. Okay, first name, and then author, and here price, and after that I'm going to get quantity. Okay, so here the name is available in the first index column, and author second index column, price third index column, quantity the fourth index column. So now I can get these values. So now I'm going to set these values into this. So now I'm going to set these values into this interface. So here barcode we are having, so in this barcode, so this is actually JText field 1. Okay, so we are going to add JText field 1 dot set text. Now we are going to set the text. Okay, so we are going to set text barcode here. Like this, we are going to set field 2, field 3, field 4, field 5. Okay, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we are going to add name, author, name, author, price, and quantity. Okay, now if I run this one, first we are going to load it. Now you can see once I click on these rows, it's going to load these details into this change book detail. So now we will see how we are going to implement this update book function. Okay, so in that case, once user click on this update book, we need to do some we need to update this book details. So that means he can change this information, and after that he can click on this update book. So then we need to update this book information. So this is how we are going to do it. I'm going to the interface again. I'm going to double click on this update book, so then I can create an event for this one. Okay, this is the event. So now again I need to connect with the database, because I'm going to update the information now. So that means we need to connect with the database. So I'm going to use a try catch block here first, and I'm going to create a connection con equal now in this case we are going to connect with the db connector class, and we are going to call to this get connection method. We can get the connection like that. So after that we are going to have the query. Okay, so now in this case, so we are going to use the update query, because we are going to update the data. Update books set. Okay, so we are going to set the name. Since I'm going to use prepared statement, I'm not adding this data directly, to the query. Okay, so I'm going to use parameters. So through the parameters we are going to add these queries. How to add a parameter point? So by using the question mark. So we can use the question mark to add a parameter point. Okay, so here I'm going to add a parameter for the name. So I'm going to set the name, I'm going to set the author, and I'm going to set the price, because we don't know which data the user is going to change. So therefore we are going to set everything again with the available data. So then if any modifications happened in any field, so that modification will be applied to the database side. Okay, so the last one, quantity, and here we are going to use the barcode as the primary key. So therefore we are going to select this record by using the barcode, where the barcode equal a value. Okay, so this is the query that we are going to use with the prepared statement. Here you can see we are not passing any value, but we are passing we are specifying a parameter point. So that means point that the value need to be passed. So this is the first parameter, this is the second parameter, this is the third parameter, this is the fourth parameter, and this is the fifth parameter. Okay, so now we can pass these values by specifying this parameter position. So then we can add these things. So now I'm going to create the prepared statement object here. PSTMT. So now we are going to use the connection, and prepare the statement. So when you are preparing a statement, we need to pass the query first, because we need to have something to prepare. So now we are going to add the parameters. So this is how we are going to add it: pstmt dot set string. So if this parameter is an string, we are going to use set string, but if it is an int, we need to use set int. Okay, so but in this case all the parameters are strings, so therefore I'm going to use set string. And then we need to tell which parameter we are going to set, the first parameter, and what is the value. So we are going to get the value from j text field 1 and get text. So this value we are going to set here. Okay, so now I'm going to add the other parameters. Second one, we are going to get okay, so here we are going to get the name is jtext field 2, and then the author jtext field 3, and then the third parameter is price, that is jtext field 4, and fourth parameter is quantity, that is jtext field 5, and this one, the fifth parameter, is actually barcode is the jtext field 1. Okay, so now like this we are going to set these parameters. After setting the parameters, now we can execute this query. So we are going to use pstmt dot, so this time we are going to run an update query, so that means execute update. Okay, so that is the method we need to use, execute update. So once we update the data, so now the database side we change the data, so that information we need to show to the user. So that means we need to update the table as well. In this case we need to update the table. Okay, so how we are going to do it? So we are having a method here, so we already created a method called load table data. So now again we can call to this method. Okay, after updating, so we are going to call to this load table data. So then we can load the table data again, and we can update, we can get the updated data to the table. Okay, so now we will see what's happening. So now I'm going to click one record. Okay, so this is the information. So I'm going to change this price into 400. Now I'm going to click on update. Okay, so we can see we did the modification, but here we are having a problem, because now we are going to load the same data again and again. So how to avoid that one? So we will go to this this load table data method. We need to do one modification here. Okay, so after creating this DTM object, we need to set this DTM row count. Okay, set row count, we need to set row counts into 0. That means every time when you are going to add data to the table through this DTM, so first we are going to clear the table, and after that only we are going to add the data. Otherwise it will append data to the table. So but here we are going to clear all the data, and after that only we are going to add it. So if I run this code now, okay, so now I'm going to use this 400, and again I'm changing this into 300. So now if I update it, so you can see now we don't have that issue. So that is how we are going to update. Now we will see how we are going to delete a book here. Okay, so I will go to the design, and I will double click on delete book. So then I can go to this action performed event. Okay, so in this case also we are going to do the same thing. So I'm going to copy this code, and in this case what's the difference? What we need to do here, the query is the thing that we need to change. Okay, query is the thing that we need to change here. What's the query? Delete from book, delete from books where barcode equal parameter. So if the barcode is equal to some value, so then that record we are going to delete. And now in this case we don't have, we will have only one parameter, we don't have many parameters, we will have only one parameter. So now we are going to remove these things now. Okay, we don't need this much of parameters, we are only passing one parameter. This is the first one, so we are going to pass only one parameter, and the other things are same. Execute update or table data, or we will run it. So now I'm going to delete this first book. Okay, this the Go programming language, so I'm going to delete this one. Okay, now you can see we can't see this book, so that means we deleted this book. So that is how we are going to implement the functionalities in this manage books interface. And we are having another one, add new book, so we will see how to develop that interface or that functionality in a different video. Thank you.